Following my video on Plagueis during the Phantom Menace, once I mentioned Sidious had already taken Maul on as his apprentice, while Plagueis was still alive, many asked the very valid question. If the rule of two was still in play here, why had Sidious, who was not currently the reigning Sith, have an apprentice of his own? The rule of two was designed to one day not only bring the Sith back to prominence, but to have them ultimately claim the galaxy itself once again. It was created to eliminate the infighting and division of power within the Sith Empire, as they began constantly fighting among themselves that it was affecting their ultimate goals. Although the Sith of Bane's era had found relative peace amongst themselves under one ruler, Bane still saw the division of power when concerning the dark side of the Force itself. He created the rule of two as a way to ensure the most powerful Sith strive, and those not worthy be destroyed, and it was a system that was proven successful, but the question still remains, why did the Sith of the rule of two era seemingly frequently break it? When your power eclipses mine, I will become expendable. This is the rule of two. One master and one apprentice. When you are ready to claim the mantle of Dark Lord as your own, you must do so by eliminating me. In truth, the rule of two Sith often broke their prized order, but the core principle remained intact, that being only the strongest shall rule. In many cases, other Darksiders were brought into the ranks of the Sith to be molded as assassins and tools in the plan of the Dark Lord and their apprentice, but never with the intention of having them even have the opportunity to become the one Dark Lord or be apprenticed to them. The entire goal of the Sith apprentice under the rule of two is to gain more power than their master, to eventually overthrow them. The main objective for the master is to continue growing in power, that they remain a match for their apprentice. A vicious cycle that promotes progression and destruction. However, in the wide galaxy, sometimes the Sith, despite their immense power, was not enough, and more help was required. That is when other Darksiders were brought into the fold. The common term for these apprentices are Sith assassins, in some cases meaning they are not truly Sith themselves, but assassins for the Sith. A great example of this is Ventress. Sidious had no plans to keep her alive for long, and he even ordered her death due to her becoming more powerful and a potential future threat. Ventress was trained to serve the Sith, not to be one. Which leads me to the next point. The training of a Sith assassin is often much different than a regular Sith. They are trained to use the dark side, but not to understand it. If one does not fully understand something, they can never truly master it. When Plagueis allowed the training of Darth Maul by Sidious, he made it clear Sidious was not to share the history of the Sith with Maul, as knowledge over that was not meant for anyone not intended as a true Sith Lord. For a time, Maul was even completely unaware the Sith were still alive, believing they had gone extinct. This leads me into the next section. In some cases, if the Sith apprentice believed their master too powerful, they would adopt an apprentice to train that one day could potentially allow them to overthrow their master. This process, however, was a dangerous one, as the Sith master was always weary of their apprentice's every move, as a result of the nature of the rule of two. Initially, Sidious claimed Maul as an apprentice without the knowledge of Plagueis, with the intention of one day using him. However, Plagueis discovered him, but allowed his training, seeing him as a non-threat. Again, he did this with the exception Sidious limit his training. One day though, during a drill, Maul displayed an impressive use of the Force, and Sidious opted to bring Maul on as his true apprentice. Over time, Sidious deduced he may be able to kill Plagueis on his own, but kept Maul, as he believed it was wise to have an apprentice ready once he became the Dark Lord. Another example of this limited training would be Starkiller under Darth Vader. Vader was aware he could likely never destroy Sidious without aid, and attempted to use Starkiller as a means to help him, although Sidious again found out and the plan backfired. In other cases, the Sith Master would choose to take on a second apprentice, if they believed their apprentice was too weak and could not one day defeat them. The first of the Rule of Two line experienced this, when after several failed attempts, Bane's apprentice Zana failed to kill him, resulting in Bane claiming another apprentice in Darth Cognis. However, Zana was eventually able to kill Bane, and took Cognis as her apprentice. This again happened to Plagueis, when after his master's death, he discovered he had been training another apprentice as a Sith, as even in his dying moments, he believed Plagueis pitiful. Because of this, Plagueis was forced to confront this second apprentice and take care of him, ultimately defeating him and locking him away to be used in his experiments for punishment. Following the rise of the Empire, Darksiders were trained in large numbers, with examples being Inquisitors and Emperor's Hands, but again with no access to all of the Darkside teachings and history, keeping them limited in their abilities. The Sith required weapons and warriors, not successors, and thus they were trained as such. While being a Sith does require one to be a great fighter, it also entails a mindset and knowledge, not only over the dark side, but the state of the galaxy itself, especially after the Rule of Two. This is why the Sith became more involved with the goings-on of the galaxy, becoming businessmen, scientists, and ultimately, senators. So to answer the question, it is very muddled. Some Sith were trained with the hopes of overthrowing their master's own masters, and in other cases, becoming the sole apprentice of a Sith Lord by killing the other apprentice. In the mind of the Sith, there were only two clear Sith at any one time, with other rivals coming to challenge their reign. Maul and Savage are a great example of this. Following his return, Maul still believed himself a Sith, and attempted to rise as a rival to his former master. He in turn trained Savage as a Sith, but in the mind of Sidious, the true Dark Lord, Maul nor Savage were real Sith Lords. To Sidious, he had replaced Maul long ago. So there's the answer. Very interesting that like some Jedi, the Sith too bend the rules of their order, and attempt to justify their actions in their own minds. For orders that despise each other so much, they really have a lot in common. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, maybe consider subscribing to ensure you stay up to date with everything Star Wars related. If you enjoyed, please leave a like as it helps the channel out a great deal and I really appreciate it. If you have any lore topics or questions you want answered, do not hesitate to tweet them at me at StupendousWave on Twitter or leave a comment and I will try my best to answer or make a full video dedicated to your topic. Thanks again for watching. May the Force be with you and have a great day.